What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video and another My Top 3. Today we're going to be looking at thoracic mobility. Thank you for everyone who suggested thoracic mobility in the last My Top 3. If you want to suggest a topic for a future My Top 3 video, then leave a comment in the comments section down below. As always, the top rated or most suggested subjects will be chosen for the next My Top 3. I'm really happy thoracic mobility was chosen for this series because it's something that I personally struggled with for a while, and I think a lot of people do struggle with, and it's so important when it comes to doing moves like the handstand and a lot of other bodyweight exercises. So today I want to give you a few of my favorite exercises for improving thoracic mobility. Before we do that, I need to mention a couple of key points that you need to bear in mind when performing these exercises. The first is avoid compensation in other parts of the spine. We want to be focusing on mobilizing the thoracic part of the spine, often something that gets seized up sitting all day on a computer. However, when we try to perform these exercises or stretch out, or even do exercises that require thoracic mobility, you often find that people compensate in especially the lumbar spine. It's for this reason that we want to be aware of where we are focusing on mobilizing on when performing these exercises. I will be more specific when it comes to each individual exercise. The second is scapular awareness. This is something that, especially when people are new to bodyweight movements, do not have the best awareness of, and it's something that's absolutely essential for when it comes to improving the strength of your upper body movements. It's this reason I want to recommend to you Ido Portal's scapular mobilization routine. Not only will this help with your thoracic mobility, but it will also help you gain more awareness of your scapula, how it moves, and how to use it. I would definitely suggest using this routine as a warm-up for doing these exercises, or just alongside and a warm-up for your general training anyway. Now we've got those out of the way, let's jump into the thoracic mobility exercises. The first exercise that I want to share with you is the cat cow. There are a few variations for this exercise, but we're going to start with the simplest, which is just the cat cow itself. You're simply going to transition whilst on all fours between the two positions. The first position being the cow position. This is when we want to be extending our back as much as possible. We want to be focusing on pushing our chest and stomach down to the floor as hard as we can, whilst retracting our scapula and looking up to the sky. This movement should be performed on the inhale. When we exhale, we then want to transition to the cat position, which is going to be the opposite, and we are trying to flex our spine as much as possible, and we want to focus on retracting the scapula and tucking the chin. You should then transition between these two positions based on your breath. Try and breathe deep and slow throughout these exercises. The next variation is the rotational cat cow. This we are simply going to perform the same movement as originally, transitioning from that cow to cat position and back again, except we're going to be moving our body in a circular motion. The easiest way I can think of describing this is imagining that your chest is going round a clock face. So as you go up to the top position in the cat, you want your chest to be at that 12 o'clock position. As you come down to the halfway point, you want your chest to be at that 3 o'clock position. As you transition into the bottom position, you want your chest to be in that 6 o'clock position. And then as you transition out back into the cat, your chest wants to be in that 9 o'clock position. And that is an example of a clockwise rotation. You then also want to perform an anti-clockwise as well. Whether you do half the reps clockwise and half anti-clockwise or alternate is up to you. The next variation is the Scapula Push Up. We're going to move from that all fours position to a front support position, and we're simply going to perform the same movement, moving from a retracted to protracted scapula. This is more of an exercise that builds scapular awareness, but it's definitely a useful variation. The fourth and final variation I want to share with you is the Superman cat cow. This exercise was introduced to me by Jordan Garcia, who I will link in the description down below. He is an awesome hand balancer and just all-round nice guy. All you're going to need for this exercise is an elevated surface. We're then going to have our hands in an overhead position in front of us on this elevated surface and our knees on the floor. We're then going to go through the same movement as the cat cow, except our hands are going to be extended in front of us. It is very important to maintain straight arms throughout this movement and really focus on moving that thoracic part of your spine and being aware of your scapular position. As with this variation and all the others, you want to be performing them for 10 reps. These reps want to be at the same tempo as your breathing, nice and slow. If you're doing the rotational cat cow, then you want to be performing either half clockwise and half anti-clockwise, or alternating between the two. The next exercise I recommend is the lying thoracic rotation. For this exercise, you're going to want 2 items to elevate your head and your knee. I'm using a foam roller and a towel, but find whatever's comfortable for you. You're going to want to start in a lying position on one side. You're going to elevate your head with one item and your top leg with the other, as shown in the video. You're going to want to have a bend of 90 degrees at the hip and knee of the elevated leg, while the other one remains straight. You then want to extend your arms away from your body, and you're going to perform an arc with that top arm. When you're performing this arc, you want to be inhaling and opening up your thoracic spine. I find it helpful to focus on retracting the scapula in this portion of the movement. While you're doing this arc, you also want to be pushing down against the ground with your elevated leg and your other arm to further intensify this mobility exercise. Once you get as far as your mobility will allow in the arc, you simply want to reverse the movement. I find it useful to simply watch my hand as I'm performing the arc, as I think it helps articulate the spine a little bit better. A variation on this lying thoracic rotation is the Brettzel. We're only going to want to elevate our head here. We're going to want to grab the leg that we have bent at 90 degrees with one arm, and then we're going to want to bend the straight leg and grab it with our other arm, and putting our body in a pretzel-like position. We're then going to perform essentially the same movement. However, instead of arcing our arm over our body, we're simply going to be retracting our scapula and pulling our elevated shoulder down to the ground as hard as possible. I find it useful to rotate my head at the same time as trying to perform the movement, just in the same way as I did in the previous example. This variation is quite a lot more intense than the previous, so it's worth working up to it by just using the previous exercise to begin with, but it's definitely a unique and intense variation on thoracic rotation. You're going to want to be performing both the Brettzel and the lying thoracic rotation for 10 reps per side, so make sure you do it equally on both. The next exercise that I want to share with you is what Kelly Starrett would call a T-spine extension smash. In this case, we want to grab either a foam roller or a double or cross ball. We're simply going to place it on our thoracic spine. We want to bear hug ourselves and then simply pivot over that point, moving from extension to a neutral spine position. As with all the rest of the exercises, we want to be moving through this movement with our breath. So as we inhale, we want to be moving into that extension position. And as we exhale, we want to be moving back into that neutral position. It is important during this movement that we maintain an active core and try not to overextend in the lumbar spine to compensate for that thoracic. You can also perform this exercise with your arms in an extended overhead position. This is actually my favorite because it translates better, in my opinion, over to the handstand. You're simply going to follow the same form cues as I previously described, except with your arms overhead. The final variation would be adding what Kelly Starrett calls an anchor, and this would simply be a weight to hold your arms in position. This means we'd be changing the movement from our upper body to our lower body. We want to get back into that overhead extension position, holding the weight with our arms straight overhead. We then want to elevate our hips, activate our core, and then simply sink our hips down until the position we are in is intense enough of a stretch and mobilization. If this is too easy, then simply extend your legs into a straight position, but make sure you maintain an active core. You want to perform this exercise for either 10 reps if you're doing the bear hug or the overhead extension variation. If you're adding an anchor, then you want to be holding this position for 30 seconds. I know we've already done 3 exercises, but I just wanted to throw this bonus exercise in at the end, and that is from the first episode of this My Top 3 series, and it's called the Butcher's Block. This exercise is mainly focused at stretching the lats and triceps, but it is an incredible, powerful thoracic spine mobilization tool. You can click the annotation on screen or in the description down below and watch my full explanation of this exercise. But that has been it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed these few exercises and that bonus one from a couple of weeks back. As with all of them, there is no optimal amount to train these exercises. If you really need thoracic mobility, then doing it every day definitely isn't going to have many negative consequences. This would also work great as a mobilizer before a training session to improve your mobility for that session, and also at the end of a session to help realign yourself after training. Thoracic mobility is very complex in the way it works. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that area, a lot of different connecting muscles, so it might take different exercises and a different amount of time for each individual person to fix their mobility. As always, if you have a suggestion for the next My Top 3 or suggestion of additional thoracic mobility exercises, leave them in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this week's episode. If you just enjoyed this video, then hit that thumbs up button, help to support the channel. And if you have a friend who has pretty crappy thoracic mobility like myself, then please share this video with them and help them out. But that has been it for today, guys. Have a strong week and peace.